when I met her earlier today, I could just feel her radiance. And what an incredible being. She's been working, training dogs as a hobby. Then in the early 90s, she moved to Southern California, where she trained under a very seasoned trainer, picked up certain techniques, and it just led her further on the path. And then it was 1997. She doesn't look that old at all. She looks at all. 1997, Deb opened her own business called Camp Happy Dog. And in 2004, she sold Camp Happy Dog and moved to one of the dog's favorite states in the Union, Colorado. Woo-hoo! We're grateful for that. And Deb is also a CGC, Canine Good Citizen. And I want to acknowledge you all for being good humans, or you wouldn't be here today, okay? She also has a book called the Mutt Master Minutes, and we can all become a master pet parent in just 60 minutes. 60 minutes, okay? That sounds good. Well, I'm just going to set down the sheet right now, because I know she just lost it when I said that. And I want to acknowledge her beautiful mother. You want to stand, Mom? Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Oh, my God.
I also want to acknowledge Erica Teal, because it was Roger and Erica that said, we found this woman that came to our home and changed our lives forever. Yeah. So with no further ado, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm going to try really hard not to cry. Thank you for being here. As she said, thank you for the introduction, by the way. I have been a dog behavior specialist for 30 years. And how I got here is kind of interesting. I mean, you heard about my background as far as the dog, the beginning of how I kind of got here with learning from a seasoned trainer. But the very beginning of my career, I wanted to be a model. I graduated high school and I went to Europe and I modeled, and I wanted to be a famous runway model. And went to Europe, and then I came to New York for 4 years, and I started acting, and I did more modeling. And I was a bartender at night, and I was a personal trainer during the day. And then I ended up moving to California, and I still wanted to pursue this career, but at one point, although my ego was very big, and at that time it was, I had a great body, I was beautiful, and my soul was empty. And so I said to my mom, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. And she said, well, pretend money is no object at all. What would you do? What would you do with your life? Play with dogs. And she said, then make a living at it. And it was at that moment that it changed the entire course of my life. Because what she said was, when you do what you're passionate about, it's never work, and you put your heart and soul into it, and so you have to be successful. And she's right. 30 years later, I am, every single day, every client, I say, this never gets old. It's always exciting. I get paid to play with dogs. So for those of you who have already worked with me, thank you for helping me continue my journey. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and I'm sure you see a lot of what's on the board, and then I have a lot more I want to talk about over here. What I'm here to talk to you about today are the behavior issues that you guys are possibly having issues with your dog that you really don't know how to fix. And I want to first say that even though the name of this today is It's Not the Dog, It's You, it's not meant to point fingers. It's meant to just say, look, let's stop looking at your dog as the reason for these behaviors. Let's take a look at what you guys are doing unknowingly and what you're not doing unknowingly that's contributing to these behaviors, okay? So one of the things that I love to talk about, because this really is the base of how to have a well-balanced dog. If you have a well-balanced dog, then you probably have a well-behaved dog. And I want to make sure you know the difference. So dogs aren't sitting in the shelter because they didn't learn how to sit. Okay, they're sitting in shelters oftentimes because of behavior issues that people just can't get to the bottom of, so they give up. Okay? But I don't want you to feel bad because just like me, I don't know how to fix my own car, right? So I have to take it to a mechanic. So go to the people that know the stuff that you don't know. And if, for those of you who don't also know, the difference between a trainer and a dog behavior specialist, it is a big deal. Okay, a trainer typically can teach sit, stay, heel, come, down, down, stay, leave it, drop it, take it, place, and all of those things. They can usually help fix minor issues, but a behavior specialist gets to the bottom of why the behavior is occurring. And then we give you the tools on knowing how to fix that. Okay? So in order to start, okay, I want you to think about your home right now with your dogs. Rules. For those of you who have kids, you know, you raise your kids with rules. So how can you have a home with a dog and not have rules, okay? Rules, what's a rule in some houses? Some houses may not allow dogs on furniture, right? That's fine, to each his own. Some people may not allow their dogs in certain rooms. Some people may not let their dogs in the kitchen when they're cooking. It's probably very smart. So rules makes perfect sense. Structure. Well, I think we all know that structure is the most important thing for a dog. They're looking to us for guidance. They look to us for information. They want to know what they're supposed to do in every single situation. But we don't do that very often. We too often kind of just let them figure out what they're supposed to do, and most of the time it's not something we're very happy with. So we really need to provide I just saw a face that I haven't seen in a while, sorry, I digress. So structure is important. Boundaries. Okay, this is one of my favorite topics. If you go back to nature, right, before we domesticated dogs, this, if you think about it, it's truly amazing. So a male and a female have this beautiful litter, right? You could have anywhere from 3 to, let's say, 10 or 15. Now, they don't have leashes, they don't have collars, they don't have treats, they don't have clickers, they don't have all of these tools that the pet industry sells for you to work with your dog or control your dog. Now think about that. Control is the best word for that. How many things do we rely on to control our dogs? They didn't even have doors. They had a cave with an opening. How do you think the mom and dad taught them not to go out the opening of the den door? We can't even keep our dogs from running out our house with doors. What is the problem here, right? So when you think about it, the boundary part, this is an important part. When the male and the female would correct the little peons, I like to call them, how do you think they did it? Were they saying, no, buddy, no? Or was it this simple? This is how simple dogs are. Now, if that warning wasn't heeded, right, the next thing a dog does that's typical is, right? You've probably all seen your dogs do that at one time or another. And then if that warning goes ignored, now it's going to be scruff time, right? There's going to be a scruff, and the mom's going to put the dog back in its place, and then the little peon's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to go near the opening of the den door. Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, so consistency. This is one of my favorite topics because when you think about the things that you all do, when your dog, well, I can use so many of the faces I see right now, but when I go into a home, you've usually got a husband and a wife, or a husband, wife, and kids, or roommates, right? Everybody tends to correct differently. So the husband may do it one way, the wife does it another way, sometimes the kids do it differently. So how is the dog supposed to connect those beautiful dots? What do we know about dogs? They're very Pavlovian by nature, very habit-forming. That's why they can learn sit after they hear that word and are trained to go into that position and then get praised for it, right? So how is a dog supposed to form the habit if everybody is doing something different? And then another part is the energy we bring to the table. okay? How many times, now really be honest, when your dog, you found him chewing up your favorite pair of shoes, or the rug, or your dog has maybe stolen the hamburgers that you just made off of the counter, how many times do you bring emotion to corrections? How often do you get angry, frustrated, impatient? Okay? I want you to remember something. I always want you to see things from this moment on, when you leave here today, from your dog's perspective. Okay? Dogs are instinctual beings. We are emotional beings. So when a dog corrects another dog, there's no emotion behind it. They're not angry at the other dog for getting into his personal space. He's just like instinctual. It's like, get out. Hey, you want to play? I mean, that's how fast it is. So when you bring emotion to corrections and you get angry or frustrated, your dog either becomes fearful or they lash out. Like, I'm going to get you before you get me. And that's why oftentimes the angrier you are, the more you might have a dog. If they don't retreat and look down, they can oftentimes growl at you, which only makes us more mad sometimes. So if you can possibly do this, try your best to leave emotion out of it. Just make everything matter of fact. And I will get back to how I typically correct unwanted behaviors. So, or where I'm going with that is calm energy. I didn't even look. That was awesome. Okay. So if you've been around your dog and just been present with them, do you ever notice that their energy is just so peaceful? They're just very naturally calm beings, okay? We have these emotional spikes, right? We get really excited, and then we get really upset, and then we get scared, and we have all these emotions that are all over the place. Your dog is going to meet you wherever you are, energetically. So if you're one of those people, and I know that's most of you in here, that come in the door and go, buddy, oh, buddy, good boy, mommy's here. Oh my God, what did you do today? Huh? Do you want to go outside? Okay, let's go outside. So all of that energy creates this overexcitement in your dog, which then leads to what? The things you don't like, right? The things you don't like that they do to other people when they come in the door. Maybe you don't mind it, but you don't like it when they do it to other people because it embarrasses you when your dog jumps up on them, right? Or if your dog starts to bark and bark and bark and bark, you like it because you don't mind it. But if they do it to somebody else, it's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I am so sorry, right? So energy. Energy is one of the least talked about topics in dog behavior, in dog training. Everything I do, when I walk into a house, guys, and I'm dealing with, let's say, a bite case, okay? I'm walking into a house where a dog has bitten 1, 2, 3, sometimes, in my worst case, it was 10 times. So oftentimes people say, how do you want to come in my house? And I'm like, thank you for asking. I'm going to come in, and I'm not going to look at your dog, and I'm not going to talk to them, and I'm not going to touch them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, and I'm going to put your dog in a place of, I want your dog to feel comfortable with my presence. And one of the biggest triggers in dogs is your direct eye contact if they don't know you. Okay, I talk to a lot of vet techs, and I talk to animal control officers, I talk to first responders, I talk to shelters, humane societies, rescue groups, and one of the things that is the least understood is that direct eye contact and what it does to your dog if they don't know you. So for my clients who know me well, I always tell them, please tell your people who come in the door to your house, hey, when you come in the house, can you just do me a favor? Can you just not look at my dog? Don't talk to him, don't touch him. Just be very calm. Talk to me, but don't do the hello. Hi, Sally. Hi, Erica. Oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long, because that too is going to create the energy that we don't want. And as soon as the dog, you know how dogs like to kind of come up and let them. As I'm talking to my clients, the dog is coming up and getting information from me. Where have you been? What have you been doing? oh my gosh, how many dogs do you have? And so I have to allow them that moment because that's what's helping them decide if they like me. Are they comfortable with me? But you know what most people do? Most people are coming from a place of accosting. That's the word I like to use, is we accost them with our eye contact. We accost them with our touch. We have to touch them, and what I want to do is I want to allow the dog to come up to me in their own time, if it's a dog that doesn't know me very well, okay? So calm energy is super important. Okay, this is my favorite. So why is it important, do you think, to know the difference between, let's say, a working dog breed and a lap dog? And what I mean by lap dog is a Pekingese. Let's just use a Pekingese. Okay, Pekingese is kind of like eye candy, They're just there to look good on your lap. They don't always have a lot going on. No offense. I mean, they're not, you know what I mean. Oh, I'm so going to get in trouble. But when you talk about your German Shepherds, your cattle dogs, your Border Collies, all of the working dog, Golden Retrievers, Labrador Retrievers, Standard Poodles, I could go on and on. What is the one difference?
They got to move.
Boom, they need a job. They need a job. They have a big brain, right? A big brain. If we go back, way back, when we first started creating dog breeds, these dogs were bred to do very specific tasks, right? Most of us, if not pretty much probably 95% of you in this room, did not get your dog to work the way they were bred to do. Am I right? Okay, so now they're a pet. So here you have this dog with this ginormous big brain, right? And now I want you to think about their day, okay? So here's our day. We have our phones, and we have our computers, and we have our jobs, and we have our television. We have movies, and we have friends, and we have hobbies, and cars, and magazines, and books, and we've got all of this stuff in life that stimulate us every day. What does your dog have? You, okay? Now, when you have a working dog breed with one of those big, beautiful brains, and you don't drain that battery, what happens? That's right. So life is going to be their outlet. And that means everything and anything they have access to is going to be their outlet. So when you have a dog that reacts, in your opinion, overly excited when somebody comes to the house, overly excited when the doorbell rings, overly excited when I take my dog out for a walk, and he sees another person or another dog or somebody on a bike or another car, and he's like, rah, 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 or he's starting to dig holes in the grass, or all of these other behavior issues that you guys have issues with. I want you to turn that finger back around and go, hold on a second. What am I doing for my dog to give them mental stimulation? Okay? Now, we all know the difference. Okay, because people say, well, really, what is the difference? Okay, mental stimulation is anything that you provide that creates a situation where your dog has to think or problem solve. Could that be any clearer? Right? So physical stimulation is kind of like when we used to go to gym class, where mental stimulation is if you went to science class or math class, right? At the end of a day, aren't you really more tired after a hard mental day? Because if I go to the gym and I work out for an hour, although it's been a long time since I've done that, but if I have, I remember when it was, if I have so much energy after I take a class, I could literally clean my whole house like 45 minutes later because my adrenaline is still pumping. So for those of you who think that 45-minute walk is what your dog needs, I don't think so. Here's what you've just done. How many times have you gone on a long walk and your dog comes home and still has the zoomies? And I'm like, well, what'd you do? You just created energy. You created adrenaline. Of course you did. But when you give your dog something to have to think about, how many of you in this room have one dog? Just one. How many of you feed your dog in the same place every day? Everybody. So what if just that one thing, I'm just giving you a mini example. What if in the morning and at night, you hid their dog food and let them hunt for it? Oh my gosh. Think about how excited they would be about doing something they really would have done in nature. I finally get to work for my food. This is awesome, right? But we don't think about, like, I walked into a client's house and I said, hey, where do you feed your dog? And they're like, right there. And I go, every day? And I'm kidding. And I said, I can see why dogs just go, here it is again. There's my bowl where it always is. Same food every day. I mean, when you think about what dogs ate in the wild, and here we give our dogs the same food every day, and then we go, oh, my dog's not very excited about eating their food anymore. I wonder why that is. Well, think about it. And it's not just flavors, it's textures, right? So you might want to make their food a little bit more exciting too. But when you take feeding and you turn that into a mental stimulating game, it also kind of forces you to have to teach stay. For those of you who have a dog that doesn't really stay really well, in order for you to get to the point where you can hide their food bowl, and you have to leave the room, right? Well, if your dog is like, where are you going with my food? And he doesn't know stay, he's just going to follow you wherever you go. So you first need to teach stay. In the meantime, that doesn't mean you can't work on the hiding of the food bowl. You could put your dog in a crate, show them that you have their food, and then leave, and you come back, dude, where's my bowl? And then I want you to just stand there and go, find it, and look in the direction you hit it, and they're going to be like, okay, she had my bowl. Then she went over here. She doesn't have my bowl. And then it's like, all of a sudden you can almost see the light bulb go off, and the nose starts working, and it's like, and let them do it. Don't think you have to get in there and solve the puzzle for them. Let that beautiful brain start to work. Another one, how many of you have ever had a scavenger hunt, even as a kid? Okay, so my husband and I do this every day. Every single day, we have our scavenger hunt, and we have our 10 dogs. And so he takes 2 big handfuls of treats. They're very soft. The softer, the smellier, okay? Don't do the dry, crunchy stuff because they won't smell it as much. But the soft, smelly, yummy treats, go with that. And he will go out, and all the dogs are inside, and he just spreads them out like Johnny Appleseed, all over the grass. And then he comes in, and I'm like, ready? And they go, and it's like 45 minutes of hunting. So there's another way of mental stimulation. Well, you can do that inside if there's inclement weather. You can hide treats around the house. Go out, let them go outside, and then when they're outside, you hide the treats around, and then let them come in. Same thing. These are easy things. Now, before I forget, for those of you who want to know, there is the wonderful Facebook page, and I've been sending all of my clients there for a long time, and I love Shay Kelly. She has done so much good work in our community. It's called Canine, this is a Facebook group, Canine, not K-9, but C-A-N-I-N-E, Canine Enrichment. And that Facebook group, the only thing they're allowed to post is mental stimulating games and ideas for dogs, so you never run out of ideas. It's a great group. I think there's like 575,000 members or something, it's crazy. And she wrote a great book too, so just saying that. So I'm gonna get to this, because I know my time. So if I start to talk faster as we get to the end, I'm so sorry. But I am recording this, so this video of the whole thing will be available, I think, for $10 after this whole thing, and we can send you the link and all that. So, okay, how many people know what I mean when I talk about what's a calming signal or what's a displacement behavior? Oh, bless your hearts. Okay, so there are so many beautiful ways that your dogs communicate with you that you are completely unaware of, okay? And the reason I wrote both is because some books will call them calming signals and some will call them displacement behaviors, but they mean the same thing. It just depends on what book you read. So when your dog is in a stressful situation, when your dog is in a situation of feeling uncertainty, nervousness, anxiety, fear, any of those emotions, they have these little beautiful emotional tools, kind of like we did in school. Like my go-to, and I still do it to this day, and I do it when I'm not even thinking, and sometimes, and I I was talking to my mom the other day, and I caught myself doing it with my left hand, which I'd never done before, and I thought, that's weird. And so it's just a calming, remember in school you had girls that would just twirl their hair all the time? Or you have kids in class that would bite their cuticles or bite at their fingernails. Some would sit there and, ow, I just got a cramp. Anyway, some would bounce their knee. Everyone had a thing that they would do when they would get nervous. Well, dogs have about 30, and I'm not going to talk about 30, I'm going to talk about 5. And the reason I'm only going to talk about 5 is because these are the 5 they most use and the 5 most recognized by you, okay? Have you ever seen your dog yawn? Most of the time it's because they're anxious and nervous and fearful. Now, there is one other thing that causes a dog to do these things, and that's when they're in pain, when they're feeling discomfort. Okay, so your job, when you start to see these little things we're gonna talk about, is to go, which one are we dealing with? Are we dealing with an emotional stressor? Are we dealing with a physical? Okay, so we got yawning, right? Lip licking. I'm not talking about when they lick you. I'm saying when you see your dog go, okay, it's when they're not eating, they're not drinking, well, all of a sudden they start to lip lick a lot. That's a calming signal. The eye aversion or the look away. Have you ever seen your dog, and it may happen when you're training or when you're angry, and they're sort of looking at you like this? And you almost feel like your dog is ignoring you? They're not. What they're saying is, I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now, and I wish you would just go away or stop talking. Okay? So that's a calming signal. Another one is, have you ever seen your dog do what we call the shake off? When your dog is wet, you see it all the time, right? They do that beautiful brrr, right? If you're waking up first thing in the morning, you'll pretty much see it all the time. Your dog is either gonna stretch and then shake, or shake and then stretch. If you come home from a walk, you'll probably see it. You go to take off their equipment and they go, brrr. That's normal. But if you see the shake off at any other time, it's a calming signal. How many of you have ever seen a dog either stand and do it or sit and do it, and they go to lift their paw? And what's the first thing you think? Oh, you want to shake? And I swear your dog is like, oh dear God. No, I don't want to shake. I'm trying to tell you I'm not comfortable. Why would I want you to touch me right now? So that's another one. A dog also, we all know when a dog kind of does that pounce into that play bow, we all call it. They do that quickly when it's an invitation to play, but when it's a really slow movement and their chest is on the floor and their butt's in the air, that is another calming signal, okay? And the last one I'll talk about is, it usually happens, they can do it when they're standing, and it's usually this, with their back leg, and it's always gonna be the same leg and it will always be the same side. So that's how you know it's not just a normal scratch, because otherwise they'll use both legs and it's all over the place. So the reason these are important, guys, is oftentimes you take your dogs for walks and you come upon situations where your dog doesn't necessarily feel confident in what's going to happen, okay? I'll give you a perfect one. How many of you walk your dogs and there are those 6-foot wooden fences, and the next thing you know, there's a dog in that yard and it just comes out of nowhere and it starts rah, 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 rah. Well, that is a very terrifying feeling for a dog, because in the wild, they kind of see things coming, but we forget that seeing things from your dog's point of view gives us so much beautiful context of how weird would that be? Like, dogs don't know from fences. We know why we put them up, but from a dog, it's like 1 minute they're walking along fine, the next minute it's like they're gonna be attacked, right? So when you see that and then your dog starts to yawn or lip lick and maybe even tries to pull away, and you're just going, God, what is your problem? Let's go. And you're not really seeing it from, wait, what is going on with him? I remember when I got Nigel, we adopted Nigel from a shelter in Taos, New Mexico. In the first probably 2 months, we were walking him. I couldn't understand why once in a while he would just start to pull. And then he would, if I kept trying to walk, he just would plant his feet. And finally, we figured it out. You know those gutters that have that opening in the street, and that's where all the water drains? I don't know what happened to him as a puppy, but I will tell you, he can hear that water down there, and he was terrified. Every single time we passed a gutter and I was finally able to put the puzzle pieces together. So in the beginning, I would avoid them for him. But then my job as his pet parent is to say, wait a minute, I don't want you to have to fear anything, right? I know how debilitating fear is. I know all too well. So I want to help desensitize you to this thing that at some point, obviously you've had some sort of negative experience with, and I'm going to help you understand that you don't have to worry about that anymore. And so through working with high-value treats, we get to the point now where it doesn't even matter. He'll walk right over it. But it took about 3 months before he got to that point. So it's always important to really think about the why. Don't just look at the behavior. I want you to start to think about, why might my dog be doing this thing? I want to go with the no talk, no touch, no eye contact. How many of you have just heard that phrase many times, right? You probably hear Caesar talk about it all the time. But believe it or not, there really is a reason for these things. How many of you have dogs that jump? Okay, perfect. How many of you have dogs, when they jump on you, you look right at them? Come on, you all do it. You all either go, no, off, and here's your dog. But you just looked at me. And you just talked to me. But here's the trifecta. You go to push them off of you. If you're sitting in a chair or standing, you push them off of you. So now let's get you've looked at them, talked to them, and touched them. Why don't you just give them a dang biscuit? Because to your dog, he just successfully got your attention. Did he not? It's like when you were a kid and you would go, Mom, Mom, when she was on the phone, Mom. And if your mom made the mistake of going, hold on a second, what? You're like, I'll do that again, because it worked. But then your mom gets smart, and she's on the phone, and she's talking to Sylvia, and you're like, Mom, Mom, and she does this. And then walks away from you. Well, so it stops working. So when you look at a dog directly in the eye, now I want you to, for those of you taking notes, really write this down. When your dog is doing something you don't like, don't look them directly in the eye. Now, this is the best way. I'm going to look right at you, right? I'm looking right in your eyes. When a dog growls at another dog, have you ever noticed this? They never, ever look that dog they're growling at in the eye. Ever. This is what they do. So you're the dog. They go, right? And then depending on what you do next, will make what I do next happen, right? So when you look at a dog and talk to them at a time that you're trying to express dissatisfaction with this behavior, you're really confusing your dog, okay? So I also don't use words when I correct. For those of you who know me, know this too well. I use one of two sounds. I either use ah or shh. Now, the reason I do that is because your dog gets used to hearing you talk all day long. You're talking to each other, you're talking on the phone, you're talking on Zoom, whatever. It's like da 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 da. So when you actually start using words with your dogs are like, stop talking. And most of the time you're not talking to him, so he's learned to kind of tune you out. But if all of a sudden I make a sound that normally doesn't come out of my mouth, trust me, it gets your dog's attention real quick. And it's much harder to bring emotion to sounds, right? I can't really make shh any more different. Shh. Shh. Ah. How many of you have noticed that sometimes you'll put your dog in a stay and you're eating dinner and all of a sudden you're eating, but you think your dog is so cute, so you look over at them, and the minute you look at them, he gets up and comes over to you. That's how strong your eye contact is. So how and when you use it is the most important thing. Having gone into homes where dogs can and sometimes want to kill me, right? I will tell you, I have learned the art of no eye contact. It is something that is why I keep saying, go back to nature. If you ever have a question about something, always go back to nature. And I know that some of you may not even know that dogs don't look each other in the eye when they growl, but now that I've said it, isn't it kind of like, they don't. They just kind of look off to the side. Okay, got it. So if I go to correct an unwanted behavior, use a sound, got that. But what I would really prefer you do even before a correction is, how many of you have dogs that bark like crazy at, let's say, the doorbell? Okay. And how many of you during that time, when your dog is going crazy, are sitting there going, no, buddy, no, off, quiet, stop talking, whatever, whatever. I learned a long time ago that dogs take direction so much better than correction. That's not how they operate, right? When you think about a police officer and they're working canine, that handler is not telling the dog what not to do. They're always giving the dog directive. This is what I want you to do in this situation. Here's what I want. And dogs go, thank you, I can do that. Just tell me what I should do, right? But how many of you have thought about just saying, okay, I'm going to teach my dog place, right? So my dog can learn place just as easily as they learn sit, down, stay, heel, come, down, leave it, drop it, take it. So what you do is you just simply, without anything else going on, you just take a treat, a high-value treat, find a place on the floor that's about 7 to 10 feet away from the door, preferably to the side that the door opens, because dogs like to see what's going on, okay? And then all you do is you take, and it can be anything from one of those like bath mats or a kitchen mat with the rubber bottom, make sure it doesn't slide, because we all have wood floors now, or a big dog bed, but it's something you practice all the time. So you take your dog over and it's like paw, paw, paw. The second that that fourth paw hits that bed, good place. And then immediately give them a hand signal for sit, and then down with the treat, and then stay. Now obviously your dog has to know stay before you teach place, because it would be all backwards. But I will tell you this, when a dog knows place well, all of a sudden, you don't even have to ask for it. Their habit is, I know, I go over to my place and I lie down and stay. Got it. Okay? That's all you have to say. But I want to say something. For those of you who have dogs that no sit, no stay, no down, how many of you always say, you know, I know my dog knows come, but he just doesn't do it. He just doesn't do it. If there's something he wants bad enough, he's not going to come. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. When is the last time you practiced come? Practiced, not asked. There's a difference. In a real life situation, that's called the game. But when is the last time you took the time with a bunch of treats and worked on teaching your dog come? Okay? Now, just because you've taught it once doesn't mean you're off duty, that's it. How many times, guys, do the Broncos practice a week? I picked the wrong team. That was awesome. That was awesome. You guys are fun. Okay, but no, think about it. They really do what? They practice 5-6 days a week, right? Now, if you think about it, these are pro athletes, or so we think. They get paid millions of dollars, right? And yet they still practice 5 to 6 days a week. Now, this is a dog. How often do you practice the commands you want consistency from? When I went to school and I took Spanish class, ask me how much of it I learned or retained a year later. Or when you practice or play piano or guitar or anything else, if you don't do it regularly, it's gone, right? So remember something. If you want consistency out of a certain cue or command, you owe it to your dog to practice, because come game time, and that's when somebody's really at your door, they have to be ready. Because teaching it is not the same thing as when that doorbell rings. That's true game time. So I have to practice it and practice it. And what I'll do is I'll say, hey, Mom, do me a favor. Can you go out the garage door? Can you come around and ring the doorbell? Hey, Roger, can you go out the garage door and ring the doorbell? Right? Now, you don't do that at first, because that's a lot of distracting stuff. But when it gets to that point where he's that good, that's how you practice. How often does that doorbell ring, really? So your dog doesn't get a lot of practice in real life situations. So you have to create that for him. How many of you have heard your dog growl at a person or another dog? Okay, And this requires a lot of honesty. How many of you have corrected your dog for growling? So I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite things to say is, correcting your dog for growling is like taking the batteries out of your smoke detector. Think about that. Dogs only have so many ways to communicate, guys. And if you eliminate that one beautiful source of communication, you know what it leaves? The one I don't like. Yeah. So, would you all agree that dogs growl for different reasons? Okay. Would you all agree dogs bark for different reasons? Okay. So, growling is simply a dog's way of saying what they're feeling in that moment. If a dog growls, can they be afraid? Can they growl as in, you're getting near my bone? Right. So if I correct that growl, all of a sudden I've eliminated one more way a dog can communicate. Also, let's talk about barking. Do you correct your dog for barking? Or do you correct your dog for incessant barking? There's a difference. Okay? Look, do you know how happy I would be if all of a sudden I started to say something to my husband and he went, shh, shh, shh. Because when your dog starts to bark and you go, stop barking, it's like, I'm just saying, hey, Mom, someone's at the door, right? So I call 7 or more barks, I will correct. But trust me, I want my dog to bark. I want him to go, hey, Mom, someone's at the door. Hey, Mom, there's a deer in the backyard. Hey, Mom, there's a beautiful rainbow outside. You know, there's a way that I love the fact that they communicate. But yeah, after about the 7th bark, it's kind of my way of coming in and going, like almost like, thank you, but I got it now. You know, thanks for letting me know. But I think we're driving them crazy. I really do. I feel sorry for them because they've come into this domesticated environment and they're just sitting there going, I don't even know. I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Okay, so let's talk about everything on your terms. So, do you know the difference between personality in a dog and the temperament of a dog? I knew you would. Okay, what is it?
I believe that temperament is something that's inherent in a breed. I mean, they're born that way, and so there might be behaviors specific to a breed that don't belong to another breed. And then personality is just what all of us have. I mean, dogs are individual creatures, and they develop their own personality, their own way of communicating, interacting with the world.
Perfect answer. The way I like to describe it is, temperament is DNA. There is nothing you can do about it. Your dog is either born with beautiful submissive qualities, or your dog is born with real confident, kind of dominant personalities. And then your dog can be born like one of my dogs, Nigel, with this beautiful balance of both. And those dogs make the best pack leaders. They have balance, they handle everything appropriately, they're not over the top, they're not too nervous and shy. I mean, they're just beautifully balanced. It's the ones that have that confident, dominant, I'm not afraid of anything, I got this temperament that you need to cross your T's and dot your I's with in terms of how you interrelate with them. And so when you said temperament is DNA, yes, you're correct. Personality, though, comes from life experiences and family environment, what goes on in that environment. The reason why this is important, guys, is because the types of behaviors that you oftentimes see, or the ones that I oftentimes get called in to deal with, are the dogs that have that dominant quality that I have to make sure that I am a consistent leader. Now, the term pack leader, I gotta tell you, unfortunately, it's been thrown around in our industry so many ways that there's a lot of negative connotation around it. So I don't care what word y'all use, whether it's a coach, a teacher, a parent, a mentor, right? You're the dog's mentor. Let's just say mentor. Your job is to help the dog feel confident and secure in life, okay? So you create an environment for him with rules and structure and boundaries and consistency and calm energy. I also have to be careful that I don't reward really pushy, dominant behavior. And I'll give you an example. How many of you have dogs that are constantly in your personal space? Like just in it and on it, or they will come up and nose nudge you for affection, okay? Or paw at you for attention. Now, most of us think that that's really cute. The problem is the more dominant and confident your dog is, the more that they're gonna take that ball and run downfield with it. I've got a lovely lady in this room right now. She was, I've worked with Lindsay, and Lindsay, raise your hand. So Lindsay has a dog by the name of Jax, and he was probably one of the first 10 dogs that did my Mutt Master Makeover program that I wrote. Lindsay's dog was, at the time this all was happening, was I believe about 6 months old, 4 months old. Lindsay's dog had been trained by some, not the greatest of people, because you went to 2 different behaviorists that basically after meeting Jack said he needed to be put down because he had sent Lindsay to the hospital 3 times? 3 times. So when I get the call that I'm dealing with a dog that had put its own pet parent in the hospital 3 times, you can't even imagine my shock when I find out that this is still a puppy, okay? But her dog is a cattle dog mix, right? Border Collie Aussie, that's right. And Jax is probably one of the, like when I talk about on a scale of this, he's like, I mean, Einstein times 400 smart. So Lindsay was a college student at the time and living in a house with another college student. She, like most people, like most of us in this room, just loved dogs. And so over time, though, Jax didn't really have rules and structure and boundaries. Lindsay just loved her dog, but loved her dog to the point to where Jax started to take on the leadership role. Because when he got in Lindsay's personal space and demanded her affection, she complied. When Jax demanded that Lindsay play with her, she complied because she loved her dog. Okay, she didn't see it, what she was creating by doing this, okay? Then what would happen is Lindsay over time would start to correct Jax, but she said, no, and he'd start to bark at her, bark at her, bark at her. So Lindsay did what most people would do, is you get louder, and you correct louder, and pretty soon the barks turned into a growl, and pretty soon the growls turned into nips, and then pretty soon he would jump up and he bit her arm and ended up sending her to the hospital, and then once in the face. But when I came to do the evaluation, her mom and her dad were there, and her roommate were there, and I sat on this chair, because I said, I just want to see the dog in all of his glory. And this dog was up on the couch, off the couch, on the chair, off the chair, all these people, and I'm just sitting there, and I just start laughing, and I go, well, this is really good news. I gotta tell you, it's not the dog. And this sweet girl who had been told by not just 2 different behaviorists, but her own vet, that she had to put her dog down because any dog that would bite its own pet parent is clearly broken. And so she did my Mutt Master Makeover, and even though it took a long time, because at this point, as you can imagine, Lindsay was afraid of Jax. And I said, you have to just trust me. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, this is not who he is. It is who you created. And when she finally bought into that and really understood what that meant and started to create that environment, and by doing the Mutt Master Makeover, which is a program I wrote about 9-10 years ago, maybe 11 now, it, to this day, how old's Jax now? He's 9 years old, and he has his own Facebook page. And Lindsay had gotten her degree in, if I remember correctly, in business management in college, and then she went on to become a behavior specialist. And Jax has helped rehabilitate other dogs. So when I started to go through and work so many different bite cases, and I mean in court, out of court, I was seeing so many of this. The thing that I was so frustrated by is our system doesn't really understand that a dog biting is not make it a dangerous dog. A dog biting, let's get to the bottom of the why and let's start giving people the knowledge of what they need, because we are creating these dogs. It doesn't have to be this way. I can't tell you. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds, lots of bites, lots of bites, lots of bites. And then once they have this knowledge, the relationship shift occurs, and it's just such a beautiful thing. What if I said to you that you can invite your dog into your personal space 100 million times a day? Anytime you want. No restrictions. But don't let him tell you it's time. With that dog with that type of temperament. I want to make sure that's clear. Because I have a dog, like, his name's Bernie, and he's just like, and he's not ever going to become that kind of dog because of his temperament. But those other dogs that end up turning into those dogs that can bite, those are the dogs that you have to create structure, rules, and boundaries and consistency with. So I decide when it's playtime. I decide when it's time to go for a walk. I decide, I call you into my personal space and I will love you all the time. Imagine this scenario. You have a 16-year-old, okay? And your 16-year-old comes home from having gotten his license. And he looks you straight in the face and he goes, by the way, I just got my license and I'm going to a party tonight and I'm taking your car. How's that gonna work? But when your dog does it, he's like, pet me, pet me, pet me. And you're like, okay, look at how cute he is. You're so cute. Or grabs that toy and thrusts it in your lap and you play with him. But his takeaway from that situation is not what yours is. Yours is simple. I love my dog. But when a dog experiences all this, he starts to go, so let me get this straight. I dictate affection, you comply. Check. I dictate play, you comply. Check. Those types of dogs with those types of temperaments, their takeaway is, so you want me, I guess, to take over. Okay. And with Jax, what happened is he would tell her what to do, and she started to correct him. He was like, her energy went here, his went here. So he had to keep going above her because in his mind, he was in charge of her in that moment. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So when I would see a judge label a dog as dangerous and put to death, my heart is breaking because I'm like, no, it's not. And let's not even talk about shock collars and pinch collars and choke chains. That's a whole nother topic, guys, and I will tell you right now, if you have a dog where you've used those or you are using those devices, please, please, please stop. Okay, when you think of the words pinch collar, shock collar, choke chain, what are we doing? Why are we creating pain and discomfort and then fear? What is that going to do to my dog down the road? Right? It might take that initial behavior and correct it for that moment, but what you're not understanding is what it's creating down the road. Trust me, most of my bite cases, and I'm talking 350, 400 bite cases I've worked, every single one of them, minus maybe 10, had shock collar history. Every one. And I know the questions to ask. So I want to just say this. Please, number one, don't send your dog away for training. Okay, you need to know you have to be the one. It's about your relationship with your dog, not about Joe Smith's relationship with your dog and then he hands them back to you. You don't know what he's doing. You don't know what they're doing to get from point A to point B. I want you guys to have that relationship because when you send your dog away, that's not your house, right? It's not your environment. It's not what's going on in your house. It's not you people, right? So it's not a realistic situation. I can send my dog away if I want to teach sit, stay, and come. But I even don't want that because I want to be the one to teach my dogs those things. So when it comes to training and learning, would you all agree with this? That training and learning should never involve pain, discomfort, or fear. Okay, good. Because what I'm about is I want to create a relationship between you and your dog where they look to you, like I said earlier, for guidance. And they look to you for information. And they want to please you because of the wonderful way that you have set up their environment. Okay, now, I'm going to end with this. The Mutt Master Makeover, yes, it's a program that I wrote and designed. It's on my website. It's a $500 program. I have clients in all other states across the country that purchase it. I talk to them over the phone. We have phone consultations, and they do it. I don't need to be in your house. It's nice. It's a benefit if you know, I can do that. But it is a program that once my second book comes out, that's what it's going to be. It gives every person a way, it's a system that basically resets your relationship with your dog. And it's a 6-day program. It's literally 48 hours on phase 1, 48 hours on phase 2, and 48 hours on phase 3. And then that relationship shift is complete. And now it's just a matter of coming forward. Erica and her husband, Dr. Teal, have gone through my Mutt Master Makeover program as well. What would you say was your biggest benefit from it?
He's not aggressive. He just runs the show. And so he was running around this little 4-pound thing, and Deb said, he was barking and going crazy and all that. And so she said, do the Mutt Master Makeover. So we did it. 6 days later, we had company come in from out of town. They walked in. Milo's like, whatever. And they said, you have the calmest dog. And we're like, you should have seen him 6 days ago. And honestly, it turned it around. And we did the program again because he fell off the wagon. Probably us.
Yes.
Thank you. Fell off the wagon. We did it again, reset, and it was fine again. So it's just amazing. And
Thank you.
All love.
Thank you. Well, and that's the other thing about the Mutt Master Makeover program is it's kind of like a diet, I guess, for people. If you work it, it works. But I'm not going to lie. Even I get complacent. I'm human. I'm flawed. Oh well. But what I notice is when I fall off the things I know work for my dog, and I start to see my dog's behavior start to shift too, I always look in the mirror first and go, okay, Roger, Mom, we got to get back on the Mutt Master Makeover. And we do a reset. And so this program you have forever and ever and ever, so that when you do become complacent, you can go, okay, let's just do a reset. This is crazy. The Mutt Master Makeover and all of my prices and services can be found on my website, which is themuttmaster.com. And then on Facebook, I have 2 pages. My personal page is Deb Nabb, and the one that I post the most videos, sometimes I do podcasts. I have 2 podcasts. One is called Life, Love, and Dogs, and the other one is called The Mutt Master Show. I often do Facebook Lives, and where I talk about, all things dog. If you want to follow me on my business page, it's Dog Behavior Specialist Deb Nabb. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of especially a Sunday. I am so blessed to have your energy, your love, and the fact that having a dog or dogs and reaching out and wanting to learn more, God bless you, and your dog is going to thank you for it. So thank you very much.